Can the notebooks of Paul Brunton be considered as memories, a will, chronicles, or a philosophical synthesis? First, let me explain the difference between the early books and the notebooks. The first 10 books were written in the form that we normally understand as a book. The notebooks are inspired thoughts that came to him as an intuition, and he wrote down whenever they happened. And I believe these inspirations took place after his final enlightenment, which is supposed to have taken place sometime in the 1960s. So for the last years of his life, he wrote down these inspirations and had them organized into topics. And he trained 2 of the students at Wisdom's Goldenrod to edit these notebooks. You've already met my friend Robert Larson, who helped us with the publication of these notebooks. So the notebooks of Paul Brunton were specifically reserved to be published after his death. In that sense, they are a will or a testament. They are also a testament of his inner experiences. So they are also memories, but in particular ways. He may talk of his travels in the 5 continents of the world, meeting great spiritual teachers, and he will tell us what he learned from them. PB considered himself a researcher and didn't like to talk about himself or his personal history. But he is still talking about himself in the notebooks, even though it is in objective terms. So for instance, when he says he, and then describes something, very often he is talking about his own enlightened state of awareness. I will actually tell you how this causes us a problem in the publishing business. Some of us believe, and I believe, that all of these books should be gender neutral. So when PB writes he, etc., I would like to change it to he or she, or the student, or the seeker. But because he may also be talking about his own inner experience, he may really be talking about himself. So that is a dilemma. And hopefully you will not mind if his books are not always gender neutral. And they are also chronicles because, as I have said, they chronicle his journeys on the 5 continents, seeking spiritual wisdom wherever he could find it. I would like to go back to his books as a testament or will. It is also possible to consider the notebooks as scripture. So if the mind of the enlightened person is pure and clean like a mirror, just as I have seen so many of you here doing such a good job cleaning the glass, then that mirror will reflect the truths of the universe without distortion. Therefore, one way to read PB's notebooks is as if they are scripture. Therefore, every word and every phrase is significant. Even though it is scripture, we must also understand it with our reason. So we have a lot of work to do to understand these notebooks. The last question about the notebooks is the most important. Is it an example of philosophical synthesis? If we are really seeking the truth, we cannot limit ourselves to one tradition or presentation of the truth. But it is not just a question of pasting all these different pieces together like a quilt. They must be melted down and put into a new form of understanding that is a true synthesis. I believe that this is what he has done, and therefore it is an excellent example of philosophical synthesis. The third and last question is, what is there of journalism in these works? As Trigueirnho has said, PB by profession was a journalist. I would like to answer this question by asking another question. What is the purpose of the experiences and tasks that life brings us? In Paul Brunton's case, he was a journalist. He developed a very refined ability to use words accurately and clearly. He developed a very critical mind, a questioning mind, which he used to understand the subject he was reporting on. So when his destiny presented him with the need to write about spiritual subjects, his personality had, or his lower bodies had the tools and the abilities to convey these truths to us. So in that sense, there is a lot of journalism in his work. I will take the liberty of adding another point. Paul Brunton talks a lot about the need to develop the whole person, the need to develop all of the abilities that are potential in us. So for instance, he says that if you should become enlightened without developing all of your human abilities, or perhaps your human and divine abilities, then even the enlightened person will have to reincarnate and develop these other parts of the personality that have been undeveloped. So we cannot neglect the development of any part of ourselves. Sometimes in the frame of mind of a journalist, PB would comment on the limitations of different spiritual teachers in this regard. He would comment on the limitations of different spiritual teachers who had not developed their full personality. Some people did not like this. I have just realized at this moment that the question of a journalist makes sense that these books are called the Noteboks. So 3 or 4 of these notebooks are published in Portuguese and in Spanish, and all of the first 10 books were published in Portuguese and Spanish. And I hope that in them you will find a deep source of inspiration that will guide you in your own search, and that will help you cooperate in the planetary evolution as you are trying to do.